there was only one person in the room who put their hand up and said, "I understand trafficking." And we said, "Okay, how? Why?" And she said, "Well, I'm a wiretapper for the FBI." And I said, "Well, why would you be here then?" And she said, "Well, when I find trafficking, I'm told to leave it alone because nobody cares about that." And that got us to the foundation of our understanding, which was, first of all, trafficking is a scary subject. And because it's a scary subject, people don't want to know more, because they don't think it affects them. So the awareness level is extremely low. And then helping people to get beyond that, first get them interested, get them at an event or watching some content that gets them towards understanding, is a journey that took a lot of professionals doing a lot of clever work. And so we've really worked hard on how do you get people to engage? How do you get soft entry? How do you not cause fear? And then how do you get them to protect their kids? Already, we've had in the last couple of years 30 kids that were in the middle of grooming, which we were able to stop by education programs into companies.
Yaz and Terry, you guys were in Las Vegas recently for CES, and I know that you noticed a lot with regard to our topic for today, which is human trafficking. January is Human Trafficking Month, and it is something that we all have our eyes on in hospitality at this time of year, of course, at all times of the year, but this is the time of year that we really like to focus on it. What are some of the things that you guys noticed while you were out there, and how might that kind of start this conversation rolling?
Yeah, so as soon as you got off the airplane, if you had to go to the restroom, right away you would see signage behind bathroom doors. At every hotel, you would also see signage in the rooms behind the doors, uh, kind of just making you aware that God forbid if someone were being trafficked or somebody were being forced to do something against their own will, there was phone numbers to reach out to. uh Tell me anything you got.
Well, I did find it. I like that it was in several different languages, which I felt was important. But I was also impressed with like the actual breadth of and scope of where those notices were posted. I would expect airports. I would expect large hotels. But one or two nights we went to eat off the strip. A very small restaurant. I used the restroom there, and same exact, it was in multiple languages, and was had a phone number on it. So I was happy to see that. I'd expect the larger facilities, but even the smaller ones also had it, which made me happy.
Yep.
I mean, we've got a couple of excellent guests today that are in the fight against human trafficking very deeply. They're both founders of organizations. Yaz, tell me a little bit about our first guest. His name is David Reid, that's joining us today.
Yes, sir. So we actually met David through a mutual connection. Um, they let us know of the work that he was doing in the space. Really industry or vertical agnostic, you could say, like every single industry. And just we were really uh, taken aback by how much they're doing in the space to do more than just check a box at the end of the day. So
Yeah, I mean,
felt
David's background is very it's very unique when it comes to this space. He had an illustrious career, I believe, for 33 years in the energy industry. And he serves as the chief technology officer and marketing officer for that organization. And he also founded this organization called RedM, or I'll have to double check my research if it was founder or co-founder. Um, but he has been pivotal in directing the organization's strategy, which includes not just the rescue operations, but also education, career training, community reintegration, and just kind of getting other organizations, other professionals, and professional networks involved to combat human trafficking. Terry, I noticed that you've also got our second guest, Brittany Dunn, involved. Tell us a little bit about Brittany.
Sure. So we actually met Brittany at the No Room for Trafficking event in DC earlier this year. She was being recognized for doing outstanding work in her field, and we were really taken back by exactly what she was doing, and we were impressed.
I was taken aback too because I noticed that Brittany also spent a long period of time in business prior to entering this space. She spent nearly 10 years in international business development, and she also founded an organization. She is instrumental in her role now at the Safehouse Project, where she manages the strategic direction of the organization, which works towards eradicating human trafficking and increasing survivor identification, providing those emergency services, and ensuring access to safe housing and holistic care, and being a bit of a spearhead for policy on the governmental side. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and welcome our guests, Brittany and David. And I would like either of you to jump in and let me know if I've got any of that wrong.
No, thank you for having us here today. We're really excited to have this important conversation with you all. And I was really blessed to meet Yaz and Terry, as I said, back in July. So I'm excited to just continue building on the momentum that we've had so far.
And David, welcome as well.
Thanks. Yeah, I was the founder about 7 years ago of RedM. Yeah, so
Thank you. It was actually in my research, I found a couple of, it was both founder and co-founder. So I just wanted to clarify that while you were here. But welcome to you both. And can we start with Brittany? Just tell me a little bit about some of the things that you've been working on recently in this space. And then we'll roll into our conversation about Vegas.
Yeah, of course. So, Brittany Dunn, I'm one of the co-founders of Safehouse Project. As previously noted, I stepped out of a background in corporate America to launch this organization 7 years ago. Really, at that time, we were responding to the fact that Health and Human Services estimated that 300,000 American kids are trafficked every year in the United States, but that the International Labor Organization estimated that only 1% were being identified. And so I'm also a military spouse and somebody who just has a deep commitment to serving the vulnerable in our community. And so it really didn't sit well with me as somebody who values service, as a mom, as a community member, that we could let this evil go unchecked. And so my co-founder and I really leaned into the idea that what you tolerate is what you give permission to exist. So with that, we stepped out of corporate America and stepped into really the calling on our life, which is to eradicate human trafficking. Safehouse Project's mission is threefold. We work to increase survivor identification through training and education above that current 1%. But that doesn't go far enough. We really have to be on that front line of helping survivors as they are identified or wishing to exit themselves from that life of exploitation. So we are there to assist everybody as they exit exploitation and get them into safe housing. And then we also do a lot on the policy side to make sure that we are driving sustainable solutions for community. So over the past 7 years, we've had the opportunity to train over 400,000 people to spot, report, and prevent trafficking where they live, work, and play. We serve an average of 1,500 survivors every year as they exit a trafficking situation, help getting them into safe housing. And then, as I mentioned, we do the policy side as well to make sure that we really are coming up with creative solutions based on the data that we're analyzing to make sure that we're really driving toward the federal definition under the Trafficking Victims Protection Act to help see the protection of survivors, the prosecution of traffickers and buyers, and the prevention of trafficking. So collectively, we believe that when all of us do those different things as a field and as community members and as corporations, we can drive public-private partnership toward that end to see trafficking eradicated through a collective impact approach.
And it sounds like, so I've been in hospitality for about 8 years, coming on to 10 years, and in an operational side of things. And human trafficking has always been something that's been discussed, something that's been trained. We've been trained to spot it. but it seems very lacking on the enforcement side. You know, there are all of these trainings on, you know, how to spot human trafficking, and then the training goes, well, what do you do when you see it? And it says, tell your manager. You know, so, and then on the
And then
manager
there's
side,
no
go ahead,
training
Greg.
for the manager.
There's no
Actually,
training for the manager.
what do you
Yeah.
do in these situations? I think the most I've seen was call the police. They know what to do. It's like, and then you call the police and they say, there's nothing we can do.
They say, provide us with some evidence, and it's like, well, it's just a feeling. Sometimes in hospitality, you just have this feeling. And David, I understand RedM's mission. Can you discuss a little bit about how you're bringing organizations together and the trainings that you conduct to make this fight happen?
Sure. The challenge we found early when we started. Now I still am CTO and CMO for a corporation, very large, $8 billion corporation. So the challenge for everyone is we're too busy first, and then there's a lot of things wrong in the world. So why this subject? And so generally our goal is to get people who know nothing about it. Because when we started, I put a post on LinkedIn, who wants to help survivors of sex trafficking with some marketing muscle, and that was it. One short statement, 57,000 views overnight. And we gathered about 50 people 5 days later and started mobilizing professionals. And all of them knew nothing. You know, they had no awareness. There was only one person in the room who put their hand up and said, I understand trafficking. And we said, okay, how, why? And she said, well, I'm a wiretapper for the FBI. And I said, well, why would you be here then? And she said, well, when I find trafficking, I'm told to leave it alone because nobody cares about that. And that got us to the foundation of our understanding, which was, first of all, trafficking is a scary subject. And because it's a scary subject, people don't want to know more because they don't think it affects them. So the awareness level is extremely low. And then helping people to get beyond that, first get them interested, get them at an event or watching some content that gets them towards understanding, is a journey that took a lot of professionals doing a lot of clever work. And so we've really worked hard on how do you get people to engage? How do you get soft entry? How do you not cause fear? And then how do you get them to protect their kids? Already we've had in the last couple of years 30 kids that were in the middle of grooming, which we were able to stop by education programs into companies. We took the Houston airport from 0 to 8 cases a year. And I think that's the problem. The airport had education, they had videos, but work videos don't help you really to change behavior or become aware. So we actually strategically designed a museum for the airport, and then we brought in someone who was trafficked at 10 years old through their airport. And it was a regular person, and they were really shocked. And so all of those things help to break up and get people interested in the subject. First of all, that it can affect your kids is critical. It's happening online, training how to catch that, and that we do catch it regularly in the grooming process. Usually, sometimes kids are gone. We also use private investigators for rescue because it doesn't happen fast enough. And then when you call someone, there's not enough money, which was the FBI's issue, as well as everybody in the space. Why is the government not doing more? Because people aren't alarmed. If people aren't alarmed, then it doesn't get, politicians don't work on it. And so that's kind of the power of our movement is getting people who would have nothing to do with this and giving them enough information to protect their children, to be aware it's a problem and to have it on their list, not to become activists, not to be terrified or traumatized into doing something. Because most people, when they get the depth of information, they give their whole life to it. So the fact that I'm a professional, our 4,000 people in Houston are all professionals. They all have day jobs, they have kids, but we find a way to have them do something so they can progress down the road. And all of the industries, we're constantly bringing people in and finding out how can we make a difference.
And it's, David, frankly, it's really sickening to hear the story that you told about the FBI agent. And I think that what you're saying is true on many levels. There's a strange level of tabooness that comes with human trafficking. Like we really are, as a society, almost afraid to talk about it. Like it's something that we don't want to say something wrong about or, you know, get caught in the wrong way on it.
Sure. It's learning that it's not, I don't think it's just the taboo. There's definitely a taboo, there's a lot of misunderstandings, and there's a lifetime of being told things and seeing things in movies that misinform you about what trafficking is. And even the buyers, if you look at the numbers being so big, it means there's a lot of buyers out there buying sex who don't know they're raping children. And you have to kind of break that in gently. That's not the first thing you'd say to someone, but we're trying to reach those people to understand that this is trafficking. There's actually a film campaign we're working on, which will go across the US eventually, hopefully on the Super Bowl and then World Cup. But we've got professional film people working on 60-second pieces, because you can't have a film that people go to, because the only people that go to it are people who are wanting to fight trafficking or curious, or which is not the majority of people. That's not your average person. And so we're going to do it through an ad campaign that's very PG, but gets your heart racing and then lets you know, like, you got to know more about this, because these are real American stories that are happening. And so it's really, I love this part. It's all business people, because I started on the board of a nonprofit. And day one is when I started reaching out to the business community, because I could tell they needed a lot of money, which to me doesn't seem that hard when you're in the business world. I know lots of people with money. But you also need to know how to communicate it so that those people will hand over their money. And they don't want to hand over their money to help. I mean, I was helping a house with 8 girls was their capacity, and which way underserved in housing and care, and trauma informed care in this country. But even the first belief that it's this big, the numbers are so big. The world numbers, are giant, and then you get to the US numbers, and then it's the science of how do you get inside someone's brain without having them check out. So we're really into it. We really, because the professionals have these skills, they love to do it. They don't want to do it for a job. But so we like I said, we have 4,000 have done work for us for free in Houston. We have no staff, no buildings. We don't need your money. So when I go to companies, that's the first thing I tell them. I don't want your money. Those people end up giving us more money in the end, but it's not what we're going for. I want their people. There was an exec the other day, and he said, hey, you should. So corporations have this thing they do where they have ways to get you to go away because people are begging for money all the time. So this CEO said, oh, you should go to our golf tournament. We give out $1 million to nonprofits. And I said, well, you already give us money, but that's not what I want. And he goes, what do you want? And I said, well, I want your grandchildren not to be trafficked. And he was like, well, I want that too. And so, he gave me his card, and I said, I want your employees' kids not to be trafficked. And so I got him away from charitable thinking into Maslow's pyramid, of like, I'm protecting and I'm looking after my family. And that's what people need, is that it needs to become personal. And when people take it that way, then we can get change. Because I don't blame the FBI. I don't blame the government. I just know it's a $245 billion world business, trafficking, that is trying to have you not see it. And they do a really good job. It's very, very clever, very psychological. I mean, we're seeing 80% of our rescues are American born, and people think, oh, it's all border, it's from other countries. Well, no, the internet has made it a really good place to develop, your children into what look like runaways.
So talking about trafficking in the United States, and both awareness, technology, and how we interact with the public, we started this show with Yaz and Terry talking about how they just returned from CES from Las Vegas. Brittany, can you give us a little insight on what you've noticed on the public information side, and really just what impact that seems to be having? What else can be done on the corporate side to raise awareness, as well as the government side?
Yeah, of course. Well, I think David made some really key points that I just want to re-highlight, is that need for everybody to be involved. This is not an issue that can be solved by a few people dedicated to it. It really is a complex criminal enterprise that it's woven itself into the very fabric of our nation. When you look at the Department of State's 2018 Trafficking in Persons report, you see that the United States is now in the top 3 nations in the world for human trafficking. To that other point that he made about, okay, we can't just focus on the victims, but we also have to focus on who's buying. And so a lot of the data goes to show that, there's about anywhere around 6% of Americans who are engaging in purchasing commercial sex. But a lot of that, when you unpack it, are high frequency buyers who are transacting over 75% of those transactions for commercial sex. So that should really help us hone in on who we are going after when we try to do this. But I think when it comes to public information, I think it also means that we need to make sure that we're not just disempowering people to make it feel like, oh, every male out there is a buyer, because that's absolutely not the case. There are plenty of men in our community who are protectors who want to see this issue eradicated, who have that focus on community education and awareness. And so, how do we elevate everyone in our community to really know how to identify signs of trafficking and then report those effectively to law enforcement? And so for us, one of our big initiatives right now is we've been working on a proprietary tech solution that will allow for anybody to come and interact with our system to discuss what they're seeing. And then it predicts or analyzes that information to say, what is the likelihood that this is trafficking? Or where does it kind of fall in that arc from grooming to full control trafficking? And so, if we're able to come alongside individuals who are just learning this issue and help kind of guide them on that education curve, then hopefully we can increase those identification rates. To that point as well, when you think about our law enforcement partners, there is a huge amount of trafficking that's happening, but it is a very complex crime to prosecute. So if we're able to better capture that intelligence and route it to the appropriate authorities who have that ability to investigate these crimes that can take anywhere from a year to 2 years to really prosecute, then hopefully we can see those prosecution rates increase. But at the end of the day, this all comes back to the importance of public private partnership, because it really is an issue that has to be tackled on multiple fronts. And so that's really what we seek to do, is unite the nonprofit world with our corporate partners, and then of course with government, to see this issue move towards a better infrastructure for eradication.
So it sounds like, was that the trafficking prevention response network that you were mentioning there? And can you tell us a little bit about it too? I mean, how would the community, or how would our audience interface with this network, or where can they find it? How can they get it? I'm thinking like not just bringing up awareness and discussion, but actual involvement, actual like boots on the ground.
Yep. So our new platform, what it does is it'll be a way for people to come and interact either with a mobile app that they're going to be able to download to their phone at the end of the month, through the web-based solution, SMS text, as well as phone. And they're calling in. And like, I was at the nail salon the other day getting my nails done, and the technician was telling me, she's like, I don't know if I've ever seen human trafficking. And I said, okay, well, I explained to her a little bit about what it is and who it affects. And she goes, well, the massage parlor next door, I mean, every 3 weeks, these women get dropped off out front with a suitcase, and they're not allowed to leave for 3 to 4 weeks. And then they get picked up. And she goes, there are men coming to this business every single day, through the day and through the night. She said, is that human trafficking? And I said, that's absolutely human trafficking. And of course, we went on to report that. But I think that idea that people just don't fully know what they're seeing, or they feel really hesitant to respond. And so by giving individuals a way to come on and talk about the things that they're seeing, and have a system be able to analyze it against a very robust matrix, then we are able to help make sure that we're taking those tips, that we're validating them, embedding them, and then we're routing them to our law enforcement partners. And so that is the power of this solution, is it really helps provide that real-time response. But at the same point, if it is a survivor coming into our system who needs support, then they're automatically being routed to our survivor support team, who can help somebody exit a trafficking situation, gets them connected with necessary resources to help break that cycle of victimization, and really sets them on a path to healing.
Yeah, it's powerful. I actually am having trouble even asking some questions because I feel emotion. It's really heart-wrenching, especially having been myself working on the operational side of the hospitality industry in the last 8-10 years. I know that even though I may not have detected it, oftentimes I'm sure that I've encountered it. The likelihood is just extraordinarily high. And so, David, your fight is both on the organizational, but also how does that integrate with technology on your end? Are you only working on the training aspect, educational aspect, and does that thread into any of your initiatives?
It's interesting because the way we approach it is we basically let anyone do anything. We don't prescribe very much. And so there's lots of things happening. We don't have enough time to explain all the different parts of RedM and how they work because we're in lots of new cities. And one of the nice tech solutions someone came up with, they actually have started a company, which is the massage business that was just mentioned. So they developed an AI engine that goes in and scrubs reviews of massage businesses, and they can actually show you your city and shocks everyone we start with in new cities to see how many of these massage businesses are actually brothels. But having something that can help that and they can see it's in their neighborhood, it helps us on what people on the journey because they're going to drive home that night and the massage place that they drive past at 10 o'clock at night will be open, which is a sign in itself. But being able to show them a map of how many places are being reported and commented on the internet or the dark web, it's a really powerful way. I don't think we have all the solutions we can come up with, but I really am big on the collaboration across lots of different groups. When we generate money, it goes into local survivor organizations. And that's why we have no employees. It's a very simple process, and then we vet those organizations. But I think there's just a lot to do. I mean, we're having conversations with ProTech. We're talking with a lot of the tech in the hotels businesses to start asking the question. And what we've been talking about is not what do we think is a good idea, which is why a lot of these programs fail. But we're going to talk to people who've been trafficked through hotels, which is almost everyone I know. And I've been in this 15 years. They've all been trafficked through hotels at some point. And so we're going to talk about how, if you're in the room, how do you report? How can we make it that you can even identify? Because most people being trafficked by the psychological approach that they take don't identify themselves as being trafficked. They just think some bad things happened in their life, and that's part of the brainwashing that goes on. And so, how do you get them to report inside of a room if we have the TV screen or we have various things? So we're starting to try and be better because what you guys described in Vegas is usually lawsuits. Is what draws why hotels are starting to act is lawsuits. There's people being sued for being complicit in the problem, and unfortunately, that's how it works. Businesses kind of lay dormant until someone does something. Vegas is in Nevada has legal prostitution, which everyone goes, that's cool. Then it'll all calm down. No. That prostitution, people being prostituted, which is what it really is not just what people call the oldest business. It's actually vulnerability and slavery is the oldest business, and that's what this is. It's actually taking advantage of vulnerable people, either putting them in this situation, or if they did choose to get into sex work, it draws a very bad group to want to come in and control. And so you start to see gangs, you start to see drugs, you start to see guns. It all goes with it. It's the same people over it. And so people are starting to react to it. And so our job now is to say, let's not check the box. Let's not make the video for the employees that doesn't work. Let's work out what does it take. And so we actually sit down with companies. We had 5 CEOs make a video lately, just because CEOs talking to their people is better than some training video. And short videos, not these long, boring videos, but short videos from your CEO or someone in the leadership team, and working those words. What words make someone report? What words work? Not what are long. Here's all the information, but how do we get someone's attention and move them to doing something? And it's always, here's general human trafficking awareness. Here's my children, and then here's what you do if you see it, and how to make it effective.
So how can employees of organizations, especially now in the hospitality industry, we're talking front desk agents, we're talking housemen, concierge, people that are in the front of house. We oftentimes will receive these training videos where it'll say the telltale signs of human trafficking. Is there an element of evidence gathering or really anything that line level associates can do to both, not flag any false positives? We don't want to disrupt people that are just going about their day. And then at the same time, having a higher level of awareness of the challenge that this is, and really bringing these perpetrators to justice. Either of you can kind of jump in on some of these things that can change.
I mean, I think there's two things, honestly. I think if you got people who've been in the business a while together, they would all tell stories of what they've seen, because I think that's common, as you know, to most people. People have stories from doing those jobs and they didn't know what to do. And so our answer with RedM is get those people together and let's start brainstorming with management too, and let's start getting better at this. That's basically our main approach. But I think if you want to help law enforcement and you want to help, if you have a task force in your town, it helps make things move faster. Not all cities have task forces, but many do. So the police are always worth calling. The human trafficking hotline is always worth calling. But I think, you know, seeing yourself as a detective is really important, because what happens is people report trafficking and they didn't write down the details that were important, if be it a license plate or any information you can have, what they look like. If you imagine you're a detective in that situation and you're seeing something, details matter. And people forget that. They just go, I felt uncomfortable. It was a young girl and an older man. And, so the details are really important. Actually, engaging is very dangerous. Some groups try and train people how to engage or how to ask, people, do you think you're unsafe? That can be very dangerous. Usually the people around someone being trafficked have killed someone in their life, and they know how to do that. So there's a level of danger that we never encourage people to become the expert. Always call on the experts.
It's a great insight, David. I mean, we don't want these staff members to put themselves in danger. So it's being that detective, it's writing down those details. It's actually trying to identify within yourself why you feel something feels off. What are you thinking that your body is signaling to you? What are you noticing subconsciously that's saying red alert? This
Well,
isn't right.
most people who come to us and say, I don't think this is trafficking, but most of the end of those conversations are 100% this is trafficking, kind of like was described earlier. And it's amazing how when you're inside of this space, that's trafficking. They make it like an absolute once they describe it. But to the regular person, they're like, I'm not so sure. If we look at our training sessions, every time someone put their hand up and said, I think this looks like my daughter right now, 100% the boyfriend has been a trafficker.
Wow. It's shocking. Actually, I've noticed both of you have mentioned massage parlors as part of this conversation. Is that just a coincidence, or is this part of the problem? Is that they tend to attract to some of these institutions, hotels, massage parlors? What are some of the other organizations or corporations or sectors that this might really be on high alert for?
I think that obviously there are a wide variety of sectors that this is going to intersect. I think it was coincidence that we both brought up massage parlors. That really represents one business model out of the 25 unique business models of human trafficking that exist in the United States. But it's one that people can easily understand really quickly. Whereas some of the other ones are more nuanced. When we look at the average age somebody is first exploited being around 12 years old, we find that 40 to 50% of minor victims of trafficking will first be sold by a family member. And so we can't limit who we believe is impacted by this, because this is a crime of that preys on vulnerabilities and opportunity. And so I never want to limit the conversation to this only happening in massage parlors or only happening in hospitality, because it really is a cross section of the population. We do see that about 75% of victims of trafficking will intersect hospitality while being trafficked. But you're also going to see them at our truck stops. You're going to see them, in the back parking lots of a lot of different shopping centers. We've seen it come through in residential homes. We did in 2020 a training for in-home service providers, specifically pest technicians, who were the only technicians still allowed into homes during COVID because of the public health consideration. And so by empowering 160,000 pest technicians to be able to identify and report suspected signs of child sexual abuse, material creation, child trafficking, exploitation, human trafficking holistically, we were able to get eyes in areas that were traditionally hidden. And so really this is a crime of opportunity, but there are going to be those sectors that have greater intersection points just due to their nature of being a venue where this can transpire more easily.
Brittany, I know that you do a lot of work on the public policy front. What right now is the greatest initiative or policy push that you believe can really be the lightning rod for change? What have you been working on recently to change some things in government to help this fight?
Yeah. So, one of our biggest challenges currently is the National Human Trafficking Hotline and its inefficiencies and ineffectiveness. The current wait times on the hotline are over 45 minutes. And about 2 years ago, over or 35 U.S. attorney generals from the states brought concerns to Congress, saying this is a solution that we are all mandated to follow. But at the end of the day, the reports that are going to the hotline are never really making their way to law enforcement. And so over the past 2 years, we've convened multiple roundtables to help draw out what are the challenges that the states are facing with the hotline. And it's really identified that there are tens and hundreds of cases where we see that there are reports of minor victims of trafficking that were never routed to law enforcement. And so that means that those children have been stuck in a cycle of exploitation, even though their exploitation was reported to kind of our national response. So right now we see a dire need to really fix that problem in order for us to make sure that as individuals are reporting trafficking to authorities, that information is obviously getting survivors the support services that they need, but it's also empowering our law enforcement partners. We can't hold law enforcement accountable for their inaction if we aren't doing our job to get that intelligence to them. And so that's really where our new technology platform stemmed from, was a call from the field saying, we need to solve this issue. We need to solve the gap that currently exists to make sure that we can not only get those individuals the care they need, the law enforcement, the intelligence they need, but really start to map prevalence and aggregate data in a meaningful way that allows us to build the business case for support.
It's actually I'm glad that I've got you both on the show today, because it really highlights how diverse of an approach you can take to this issue. With David's initiatives and with Brittany's initiatives, you guys are both approaching this from a very different side of the problem, but both of them are equally important. It's kind of like a left hand, right hand of this beast of community engagement, policy into interventions. David, what are some of the challenges that you've noticed running RedM? What kind of friction have you encountered? And what are your plans going up until the next 5 years, up to 2030, to reverse some of those challenges that you've been encountering with the way that you work your organization?
I mean, it's running a 100% volunteer environment is it's a leadership challenge, really. When we go to new cities, we engage, and everything we do is as natural as possible. So our volunteer system, the way it works, for professionals to do this. Most of them would never sign up to be a volunteer for an organization fighting trafficking. And most of the reason is their lives are too busy, too complicated. And so we have to design a system which has masses of volunteers that allows people to say, you know what, I need a break for some reason or other, or I can only do 1 hour a year. Great. So that has its complexities. I just went through a very long kind of review with the leadership team, and growth has lots of challenges, but we have some really good people. And but as we go to new cities, we're trying to work out scale, right? How do you scale? We have about I think 8 cities that we're in, trying to grow, one in the UK and the rest all in the US. What we're working on, the ad project that we're working on, is a professional filmmaker making 60-second pieces, and then we're taking the model that we've built inside of Houston and we're going to put it everywhere else. Originally, I just thought you put that out, QR code, people get a box, they learn how to do it, they do it. The truth is, we in cities have to look at how we do that, and we have to pick leaders, and we have to make sure we're doing it right. Sometimes you can be helping an organization that looks like they're a recovery organization, and sometimes they are traffickers. And we've had that a couple of times. So we have to be very careful that people, well-meaning people, don't end up supporting bad people. And we've had to go in and understand the organizations, that the kind of organizations we help are really poor marketing organizations that are excellent at doing work for survivors. So there's some really big organizations, but they have huge staffs because they're working on getting the money to support the work they do for the survivors. There's many that are going along and struggling to make money, but managing to keep themselves going. Those are the ones we really want to go in and say, forget your marketing. We can do that. And we can bring in professionals to lower your costs. And so that model is working well. But when you go to a new city, you got to find them, you got to vet them. Because we have access to large corporations, it's the dream for everyone who's a nonprofit. And so they all want to work with us. And so that's a hard thing. So scaling to cities is hard, but when the film goes out, and we're hoping to be in most cities and set up in cities. So we're working on the kits and the process, because we work at no cost. So everything we do, everything we make, every place we do an event, it's all no cost. It's all donated. We just do everything donated all the time. And we can get, sometimes we'll have to pay for things. But we've really got this machine of using people who can afford to donate rather than trying to scrape all the time and live in a much more effective and professional way. So yeah, it has its challenges, but the thing that is fun is it's attracting professionals who care about a cause, and it's a very positive environment. So we don't use any dark imagery. We don't even talk about the process of what happens deep in trafficking. And we literally keep it light and fun. And we do events that are nothing to do with trafficking. We have cultural nights. We have a Spanish night. We have Mexican night, Scottish night. So that once we started cultural nights, everybody wanted to do one. People come to them to celebrate culture, and then they learn about trafficking. So it's that kind of clandestine. How do we get to people that is fun, And most people are like, you people are all really happy and you joke a lot, and we do, yeah, sure, because it's a really dark subject, and most of them are not close to the depths of the problem, and that's the secret to getting it out to people. Is there's an incessant desire to tell them all the details. And I think my team, I just had them for the first time meet all of our partners and have them talk about the details and learn about being trauma informed, which none of them had been trauma trained. And that was okay with me, because it means you've got to learn really dark things to get there. And they're not interacting with survivors all the time. They're interacting with professionals. So it is an interesting dance. It is a challenge, but it's working. I mean, we're growing very, very fast. We did 90 events in Houston this year. We did 40 the year before. So we're constantly giving the same money to organizations. So we allow money to build up so that we, in the quiet times like the summer, we're always giving people the exact same check so that they can count on it and build their organization. So there's just a lot of good things, plenty challenges, but business people are used to that. There's a lot of stress that we all like.
Yeah, you're right. It's a stomach churning topic. It's a dark topic. So it's like both when you're getting the message out about this, some people just tune out, and it's not because they don't care about the subject. It's just too heavy of a topic for them
But
to want to
we
interface
measured it.
with.
We did a digital test, and we looked at all the amount of people seeing content and making content. Same amount of people in both groups, meaning that only people who fight trafficking watch trafficking content. So we started we don't even look like a trafficking, or our name doesn't say anything about trafficking. There's nothing religious in it. And so we actually post RedM cups on Mondays. Everyone does, wherever they are. And it's a cool picture from somewhere, sometimes funny. And it's hashtag Red Monday. And that has caused it to go viral. And so people stop because it's someone who's posting a cup in, wherever you are in the world, South America or Dubai or wherever, or if you're just at your house. And what happens with the algorithm is someone sees it, they look, they stop. They're now going to get more of that content, and it works, and it's kind of a fun. So everyone knows the name, and not everyone knows fully what it means.
And David, you mentioned something like a trauma-informed approach, and Brittany, I know that's very important to you. Is that survivor first mentality? How does the Safehouse Project embrace a survivor first, trauma-informed way to approach these topics? Because it is difficult, especially when we're working with such heavy subject matter, not to be too desensitized to it.
It's a great question. And it's one, and to David's point, that you have to learn over time as you step into this work. I know that we made our fair share of mistakes early on with going too heavy on a lot of the hard things that happen behind closed doors. But there is so much hope in this work. Every day we get to see lives transformed and post traumatic growth is possible. And so making sure that people don't just focus on the hard things in this issue and really bringing to the forefront those stories of overcoming is really critical. I know that we've been able to walk alongside thousands of survivors at this point, but some of the ones that stand out the most to me over the years are those that have come onto our staff after having had the opportunity to go through a Safe House program and learn, life skills and get education, and really be able to have that investment into their careers. And so there are so many members of our staff who have that lived experience. And what they're able to do now is take the real life intersection points with community and integrate that into our training curriculums. So as we are educating people on the signs of trafficking, it's coming from a deep place of knowledge because the individuals who have written that, who have produced it and developed it, are those with that lived experience. Similarly, with our Safe House programs that we place into, we work really hard to make sure that they are using those survivor-informed and trauma-informed practices. So our national certification model goes in and evaluates these Safe House programs against evidence-based and promising practices to make sure that as individuals step into these homes, that they can see those cycles of exploitation broken. And so I think that, at the end of the day, when it comes to any social justice issue or anything where you're talking about having to harness the information of somebody's lived experience, you can't do that without having those people not just be involved in the process, but be involved in that process from the beginning through the end. And so they are the leaders of many of our programs, and they are the ones who will truly lead our nation toward that end state of eradication.
It's crazy. We're coming up almost on our wrap up time. We're over 47 minutes into the show, and I feel like we only just got started. I want to kind of wrap this conversation on a more positive note, and also a bit of a call to action. So I'll start with David, and I'll go to Brittany. But how can people that are in the hospitality industry, because at this time, much of our audience is hospitality based, how can they get involved with RedM?
You want to go ahead and answer?
It's really easy for us. So you can just look at our website, www. You don't have to say the W's, joinredm.com. And we have ways to just kind of connect. And what we do is we're in the process right now, and we've wanted it for a while, but really with ProTech, we've been working on how do we get people to get into groups and start brainstorming their spaces. I think that's the beauty of we can actually change this in an effective way. So signing on and saying, okay, let's find a way, and we promise that we won't overuse you, we won't put you in a position where you're overstressed, but we can engage anybody, and this group is a growing group right now, and so it's a good time to join us and start seeing and looking at, how can we effectively do this. I love that we managed to change the picture in Houston Airport. And we're starting to do that with Denver, and we're talking Austin right now, Dallas. I'm going to be speaking later this week. So getting people engaged, where the problem is, we got to just do the same thing in the hospitality business, and it's perfect timing for us right now.
Let me know a little bit about how maybe specifically like hotels and individual management companies might be able to interface with your organization.
Yeah, we're designed for people to engage who are involved in hospitality or leadership or management. We have ways for everyone to get involved. It's pretty much going to our website, joinredm.com. You can follow us on LinkedIn. It's a very strong area for us. But reach out to myself as well, David Reid. I work at NOV, so you can find me, send a note to me, and we'll get you connected, because we're trying to build a group right now that's going to address hospitality, and that will require all sorts of people to get on board and start talking and coming up with ideas. But I think it's the way it's worked the best, and that's why we're called the M part of us, is we're a movement, and that allows people to engage, and we basically remove barriers to make it easy for people to do something. And so you won't be overtaxed, you won't be overworked. It's really as easy as we can make it. We work on what's the easiest thing to do, what do we like doing, and then we create methods to get something done. So it's a great time to jump in and join us in the fight.
Thank you, David. And Brittany, on the same token, tell us a little bit about how our audience can engage with Safehouse Project, support some of your initiatives, and to continue to follow you in your mission and journey in this fight against human trafficking.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, you can always go to safehouseproject.org and learn more about all of our initiatives. But when it comes to where we're really being able to make forward progress with our hospitality partners is in two key ways. First, for our vendor community, we encourage you to roll out training throughout the different vendor community corporations at iamonwatch.org. This is a free 1-hour training that helps really dissect the various business models of human trafficking through that survivor informed lens. And that is just a step to really unite arms with a lot of the initiatives that have come through the American Hotel and Lodging Association and their No Room for Trafficking initiative. It's just that continuation of that movement. But I think the other thing that we're really excited about is, to the point of technology, is how do we make sure that we aren't just leveraging people to identify trafficking, but how are we maximizing the impact of technology? And so we have a hospitality working group that really is leading the way in helping make sure that the hospitality industry is poised to not just continue on the trajectory they are, but to really lead the way across all corporations on this important issue. So if you would like to join that, you can email me at Brittany, Brittany, at safehouseproject.org, and we will get you plugged in.
Thank you both. It sounds very much like this is a topic that people want to engage with and help with as soon as they are activated. So it's about starting that conversation, having the courage to let your vendor know, hey, this is an organization. Would you be interested in, having this conversation with me, doing this event with us, being a part of the solution? It sounds like something that people very much want to be involved with once they are told about it. Thank you both for coming on the show to speak with us and our audiences about this topic, and we will definitely continue. Our organization will continue to be a part of this fight. If you guys need anything at all, if you guys want to come on the show at any point in time, just let us know. If you've got a new initiative or something that you'd like to talk about, please give us a call, shoot us a text. You know our emails, and we'll be happy to have you back.
Great.
Well, thank you for your time today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Nice. Thank you.
Thank you.